Hi again, and welcome to Storytime with Nana, Lynn, and Glow. Glow is working on another set of books and also a Christmas video that we did this year. Since we couldn't be together, we did a compilation of folks opening their gifts so everyone could see, like it would have been had we all been able to be together. But with COVID, it's not one of those things that we need to do. We don't need to play with it. It's not anything to be playing with. So we are continuing our story of Another's Treasure by Nancy Mehl, and we are on chapter 28. And we've just discovered that Uriah's Barnhart's sword, his Civil War sword, has been stolen from his house. Elizabeth's been wondering, was it Mary that took it? Because she mentioned just breaking in and taking it. Let's read on and see if we can discover what's going on. Chapter 28. Elizabeth sat in the car for a few minutes, thinking. Finally, she took her cell phone out of her purse and called home. The phone rang a few times before Martha answered. Keeping an eye on Uriah's front door, Elizabeth asked her if Mary was there. Well, no, she said. I heard her leave a couple of hours ago. She didn't tell me where she was going, and I haven't seen her since. Why? Is she in some kind of trouble? Why would you ask that? Elizabeth said. Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's because you're calling while you're on a date and you sound upset. What's going on? Well, I honestly don't know. I'm sitting outside of Uriah's house. He called the police, and John responded. Someone took his sword. Martha was silent, making it clear that her mind had gone exactly where Elizabeth was. Surely you don't think, Martha said finally. I don't know what to think. Mary's not a thief, but you know how impulsive she can be. She acts without thinking. I know, Lizzie, but she's always been very honest. Elizabeth sighed. I hope so. Is John with you now? He's inside with Uriah, Martha. We messed up. We didn't call him after we found out about Eleanor, and he's still looking for our burglar. Nonsense, she said. I called the police station and left the information with the woman who answered the phone. Really? Well, it never got to John. I don't suppose you remember the name of the person you talked to. Of course I do. It was Rose. And you told her to pass the information on to John. Well, of course I did, she sighed. I don't know what happened, Lizzie, but the fault isn't ours. You need to tell him to check with this Rose person. Absolutely. Thanks, Martha. I should have known you'd do the responsible thing. Hey, John's coming out. Can I call you back? Sure, I'll be here. Okay, Elizabeth grinned when she saw Uriah on John's heels. The last thing she wanted to do was to talk to him. As they approached, she rolled down her window. The expression on John's face stopped her short. Elizabeth, John said as he came up to the window, Mr. Barnhart seems to think that you had something to do with the disappearance of his sword. Well, that's not true. How would I know what happened to it? Because you stole it, Uriah yelled. I know you have it. He turned his attention to John. Arrest her. Arrest her right now and tell her to return my property. His voice was so loud that people in the neighborhood came out on their porches to see what was going on. She's a thief, I tell you. Throw her in jail. But first, ask her what she did with it. John leaned down until his face was level with hers. I'm so sorry about this, Elizabeth. He said the sword was stolen a couple of hours ago. I told him we were at the play during that time, but he won't believe me. Elizabeth took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves. Mr. Barnhart, I truly didn't take your sword. She pointed at John. Do you still have that ticket stubs from the play? He snapped his fingers. Of course, I should have thought of that. He reached into the pocket of his slacks and pulled out the stubs. See, he said, showing them to Uriah. The play started at 6 o'clock. It lasted 2 hours. Then we went to dinner. He pulled out his billfold and took out the restaurant receipt. The time is stamped on this, and I'm telling you that Elizabeth was with me since 5 o'clock. I can assure you she did not take your sword. It's not possible. Uriah looked like someone had slapped him in the face. I still think you're involved somehow, he blustered. He pointed at John. You need to look into this. Check out her sisters. I'll bet one of them did it. They've been trying to get me to give them back the sword ever since I bought it from them. A look of triumph washed over his face. John sighed and looked at her. I take it this is one of the things that belong to Anita Smucker. Elizabeth nodded. She was particularly upset about the sword, but she doesn't know if it's valuable, and neither do we. I've been doing some research and haven't found anything that would lead us to believe that this is what Anita's been looking for. She nodded toward Uriah. Sorry the sword's gone, Mr. Barnhart, but I had nothing to do with its disappearance, and I'm certain Anita didn't either. As I just said, there's no evidence that the sword is worth more than a few $100s. Anita Smucker wants that sword because of her great-great-grandfather, not because it's worth a lot of money. He glared at John. You need to go check out that woman's home. I'll bet you'll find it. First you're saying Elizabeth broke into your home and stole something, and now you say it was Anita Smucker. John shook his head. You haven't given me anything that I'd call probable cause. I'll file a report, and we'll do everything we can to find your sword. But I'm not going to bother the Clausen sisters or Miss Smucker without evidence. Uriah's face wrinkled into a sneer, and Elizabeth was certain steam would shoot out of his ears at any moment. He'd turned and started to stomp back toward his house when John called him back. Convinced he would ignore John, she was surprised when he walked back to the car. Mr. Barnhart, John said when he got closer, I understand you hardly ever leave your home. Did you go anywhere this evening? Not that it's any of your business, but I had to pick up my medicine. My pharmacy has started charging for deliveries. It's highway robbery, and I'm not going to pay it. Well, who else knew you were going to the pharmacy? No one, he insisted. I'm not in the habit of telling people my business. Mr. Barnhart, this is important, Elizabeth said. Please think about it. Why? So you can blame someone else for what you and your sisters did? No, thank you. With that, he turned around and headed for his front door. Once inside, he slammed it behind him. That was a good question, Elizabeth said. I suspect someone found out he wouldn't be home. That person will likely be our thief. Well, that makes sense. John gestured toward the house. I need to go inside, take some pictures, ask some questions. I understand. I'll call my sisters and ask if one of them can pick me up. You don't have to worry about me. Elizabeth had just finished speaking when a police car pulled up behind them. Hold on, we may be saved. Let me talk to these guys. John walked over to the squad car and spoke to the officers inside. Then he came back to the car and got inside. They're going to take it from here. He started the car. I know it's late, but how about dessert? The sidewalks are rolled up early in Bird in Hand. Just where do you suggest? Well, I understand you know someone who's a fabulous baker. Are you actually inviting yourself over? John feigned a look of innocence. Would I do that? Elizabeth giggled. It's a great idea. Let me call Martha real quick and warn her. She dialed the house number and asked Martha if it was okay for her to bring John to the house for dessert. Are you serious? Martha asked. I'd love it. In fact, I just took an Italian cream cake out of the oven. Ooh, my favorite? Elizabeth asked. Yes, Lizzie, I made it for you to celebrate your decision to get out and live your life. Martha chuckled. And no, I won't say that in front of John. You're safe. Elizabeth laughed, grateful for her sister and that she had made it clear she wasn't going to say something embarrassing in front of John. Okay, we're on our way. Good. You can bring me up to date on Uriah. I will. I hope Mary will be back by the time we get there. I hope so, too. See you soon. Elizabeth hung up and smiled at John. You're in for a treat. Martha just made my favorite dessert, Italian cream cake. Have you ever had any? He shook his head. I can't say that I have, but it sounds great. It is. Thankfully, Martha doesn't make it a lot. Too many calories. He laughed. Not something you need to worry about. By the way, is it okay if I tell you how lovely you look tonight? Elizabeth looked away, her heart beating so hard she wondered if John could hear it. Of course you can. I noticed how beautiful you were the first time I met you. But when you started to talk, well, I knew you were someone special. Tonight has proven me right. Elizabeth felt her face grow hot. Thank you. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything except that you'll go out with me again. Yes, I'd like that. He smiled and put the car into gear. As they drove toward Elizabeth's house, she wanted to revel in the warmth of John's words, but worry about Mary kept crowding them out. Wow. That's incredible, isn't it? Wow. Well, I will see you in the next video, and we will continue to see what is going on, and hopefully we can get this figured out so that they can visit their relatives and find out that they didn't do it. Because remember, the book said that Mary went to Bill's, so evidently she went to talk to him to try to get her life straightened out. So we know she didn't do it. I wonder who did. Well, we'll find out, or we'll get closer to the truth in the next video. Bye now.